The moment three identical little faces peered over the edge of his cafe table, Marcus Chen's life changed forever. Their whispered request, "Pretend you're our father," seemed innocent enough, but it would unravel a story of loss, connection, and unexpected second chances that would touch the hearts of everyone involved. If this story moves you, please consider liking this video and subscribing to our channel for more heartwarming tales of human connection. Your support helps us continue sharing stories that remind us of the unexpected ways love finds us when we need it most. Marcus stared into his tea, watching the amber liquid swirl as he absently stirred it. The cafe buzzed with the usual Saturday morning crowd, couples leaning into each other, families with children coloring placemats, friends catching up over steaming mugs. Everyone seemed connected to someone. Everyone except him. 3 years had passed since Eliza's death, but the weight of her absence still pressed against his chest each morning when he woke to an empty bed. Their daughter, Sophie, now 7, was spending the weekend with her grandparents, Eliza's parents, leaving the house echoing with silence. These Saturday morning escapes to Marigold Cafe had become his ritual, a way to be alone without feeling the emptiness of his home. The cafe was his sanctuary of sorts, a place where the background noise of other people's lives drowned out the deafening silence of his own. He'd chosen his usual corner table, the one by the window where the morning light filtered through the stained glass hangings, casting prisms of color across the worn wooden surface. The barista, May, had already brought his usual order without him having to ask, Earl Grey with a splash of milk, no sugar, and a blueberry scone that he would only pick at. She'd given him that same sympathetic smile she always did, the one that said she understood more than she let on. He was so lost in thought that he didn't notice them at first, 3 identical little girls with dark curly hair and matching blue dresses, standing beside his table. They couldn't have been more than 6 years old. When he finally looked up, they were watching him with solemn brown eyes. "Excuse me," the one in the middle whispered, glancing nervously over her shoulder. "Can you pretend to be our dad? Just for a little while?" Marcus blinked, certain he'd misheard. "I'm sorry, what?" The girl on the left leaned closer. "Please. We need a dad for a few minutes." "Where is your real father?" Marcus asked, looking around the cafe for any sign of a frantic parent searching for triplets. "He died," said the third girl matter-of-factly. "And our mom is crying in the bathroom." Marcus felt his heart constrict. The directness of children could be devastating in its simplicity. Before he could respond, a woman with the same dark curls as the girls emerged from the back of the cafe. Even from a distance, he could see her red-rimmed eyes and the way she tried to compose herself, straightening her shoulders as if preparing to carry a heavy load. "Girls," she called, her voice strained but gentle. "What did I tell you about bothering strangers?" The triplets exchanged panicked glances, a silent communication passing between them that only identical siblings could understand. Their little faces scrunched in identical expressions of determination. "He's not a stranger, Mommy," one of them called back. "He's Daddy's friend from work. Remember?" Marcus nearly choked on his tea. The boldness of their improvisation caught him completely off guard. The woman approached, confusion and embarrassment coloring her face. Up close, he could see the shadows under her eyes, the slight tremble in her hands as she reached for her daughters. "I'm so sorry," she said, her voice low. "I don't know what's gotten into them. Girls, we've talked about making up stories." The middle triplet, Marcus was already losing track of which was which, tugged at her mother's sleeve. "But Mommy, you were crying again. We wanted to make you happy." The woman's face crumpled for just a moment before she regained control, a brief glimpse of raw grief that Marcus recognized all too well. It was the same expression he sometimes caught in his own reflection, the one that appeared when a memory blindsided him or when Sophie asked a question about her mother that he couldn't answer without his voice breaking. "I'm fine, sweethearts. Now apologize to this nice man for interrupting his morning." Marcus found himself standing, extending his hand. "I'm Marcus. And it's no interruption at all. would you like to join me? I have way too many scones for one person. He didn't know why he said it. Perhaps it was the familiar grief he recognized in her eyes, or maybe it was simply that his table for one had felt too empty for too long. Or perhaps it was something about these three little girls with their matching dresses and their desperate attempt to make their mother smile. The woman hesitated, studying his face. Her eyes were a deep amber color, rimmed with long lashes still damp from recent tears. She seemed to be searching for something, ulterior motives, perhaps, or signs that his offer was made out of pity rather than genuine kindness. I'm Nora. And these are my daughters, Lily, Rose, and Violet. The flower girls, Marcus smiled. Beautiful names. Our daddy picked them, Violet, or was it Rose, announced proudly. He said we were his garden of joy. Nora winced slightly, but Marcus nodded seriously. He had excellent taste. Something in his tone must have conveyed understanding, because Nora's shoulders relaxed slightly. Maybe just for a few minutes, she conceded, pulling out chairs for her daughters. As the triplets climbed onto their seats, chattering excitedly, Marcus caught Nora's eye. I lost my wife 3 years ago, he said quietly. Cancer. Nora's eyes widened slightly. Car accident. 18 months. No other words were needed. In that moment, a bridge of understanding formed between them, the kind that only those who have walked through the valley of grief can build. It was a silent acknowledgement that they both understood the weight the other carried, the invisible backpack of loss that sometimes felt too heavy to bear. The few minutes stretched into an hour, then 2. The girls devoured scones and hot chocolate, leaving impressive chocolate mustaches that Marcus helped clean up with extra napkins. They told him about their kindergarten class, their pet goldfish named Bubbles, and how they could tell each other apart even though no one else could. Lily has a freckle right here, Rose explained, pointing to a spot just below her sister's left eye. And Violet's pinky finger is crooked from when she fell off the swing. What about you? Marcus asked. How do they tell you apart? Rose grinned, revealing a missing front tooth. I'm the only one who can wiggle my ears. She demonstrated, and Marcus applauded, making her beam with pride. That's quite a talent, he said, genuinely impressed. Can you teach me? Rose's eyes widened. You can't wiggle your ears? Everyone should know how to wiggle their ears. I'm afraid it's a skill I never mastered, Marcus admitted solemnly. I can teach you, Rose declared, sitting up straighter. First, you have to think really hard about your ears. Like, really hard. Marcus concentrated, furrowing his brow dramatically, which sent all 3 girls into fits of giggles. No, no, no. Rose laughed. Not your whole face. Just your ears. Throughout their conversation, he noticed Nora gradually relaxing, even laughing at her daughter's antics. When she smiled, her whole face transformed, and Marcus found himself wanting to see that transformation again and again. There was something about the way her eyes crinkled at the corners, the slight dimple that appeared in her right cheek, small details that he found himself cataloging without meaning to. What about your little girl? Nora asked during a lull while the triplets were busy drawing on napkins with crayons the waitress had brought. You mentioned you have a daughter? Sophie, Marcus nodded, pulling out his phone to show a photo of a gap-toothed 7-year-old with her father's dark hair and her mother's dimpled smile. She's with her grandparents this weekend. They take her once a month, it's good for all of them, but the house gets pretty quiet. I know that quiet, Nora said softly. It's deafening sometimes. Like the whole world is holding its breath, Marcus added. Exactly. Nora's eyes met his, and for a moment, they were the only 2 people in the crowded café. Sometimes I turn on all the TVs in the house, just to have noise. I play Eliza's old records, Marcus confessed. Even the ones I never liked. David sports channels for me, Nora said with a small smile. I still don't understand football, but the commentators' voices fill the space. Their eyes met, and Marcus felt something shift in his chest, not the familiar ache of loss, but something lighter, like the first breath after being underwater too long. It was the strange relief of being understood without having to explain. The moment was broken when Lily tugged at his sleeve. "Can you come to our house and see our room? We have bunk beds, but there's only 2, so we take turns on who gets to sleep on the floor in the sleeping bag, but it's actually the best spot because you can make a fort with the blankets hanging down, and sometimes Mommy lets us use the flashlights to read books after bedtime, but only if we're super quiet and don't tell anyone it's past our bedtime, Anne." "Lily," Nora interrupted gently, placing a hand on her daughter's arm to stem the flow of words. "Mr. Marcus probably has plans today." 3 identical faces fell in disappointment, their expressions so synchronized it was almost comical. Marcus found himself thinking of Sophie, who would be returning tomorrow afternoon, and how she might get along with these energetic triplets. She'd been asking for a playdate with someone new, tired of the same friends from school who treated her differently since her mother died, walking on eggshells around her as if grief were contagious. Actually, Marcus heard himself saying, "I was just going to do laundry and maybe watch the game. Nothing that can't wait." The triplets cheered, and even Nora looked pleased, if a bit surprised. "Well, if you're sure, we were going to bake cookies this afternoon. The girls have been begging to try this rainbow chip recipe." "I make a mean chocolate chip cookie," Marcus offered. "My mom's secret recipe. The trick is browning the butter first." "You can cook?" Nora asked, raising an eyebrow. "I've had to learn," he replied with a small shrug. "Sophie deserves better than takeout every night." Something in Nora's expression softened. "We live just a few blocks from here. You could follow us in your car if you'd like." And just like that, Marcus's solitary Saturday transformed into an afternoon of flour-dusted countertops, giggles, and the warm, forgotten feeling of being part of something larger than his grief. Nora's house was modest but warm, a 3-bedroom bungalow with toys scattered across the living room and framed children's artwork lining the hallway. The front yard featured a massive oak tree with a tire swing hanging from one sturdy branch, and a garden of wildflowers bordered the walkway to the front door. It was the kind of home that invited you in, that promised comfort and safety within its walls. Family photos covered one wall of the living room, many featuring a tall man with the same curly hair as the triplets, his arm around a younger, carefree Nora. In one, he was holding 3 newborn bundles, his face a mixture of terror and absolute joy. In another, he was pushing a triple stroller through what looked like a zoo, his smile wide and genuine. "That's our daddy," Violet told Marcus, pointing to a beach photo where the man was building an elaborate sand castle with toddler versions of the girls. His name was David. He was very funny and made the best pancakes shaped like animals. "He sounds wonderful," Marcus said sincerely. "He was," Nora said from the doorway, her voice steady. "The girls were only 4 when he died. Sometimes I worry they'll forget him." "We won't forget, Mommy," Rose said firmly. "We look at his pictures every night and tell stories." "And you tell us new stories about him," Lily added. "Like how he fell into the fountain on your first date. Or how he got lost in the hospital when we were being born and ended up in the gift shop buying 3 of everything," Violet giggled. Nora smiled, though her eyes glistened. "That's right, we do." She turned to Marcus. "Ready to prove your cookie-making skills?" The kitchen became a whirlwind of activity. Marcus showed the girls how to brown butter in a pan until it smelled nutty and fragrant, while Nora measured flour and sugar. The triplets took turns adding chocolate chips, sneaking almost as many into their mouths as into the batter. "Sophie and I bake every Sunday," Marcus explained as he demonstrated how to properly cream the butter and sugar. "It started as a way to keep traditions going after Eliza died, but now it's our special thing. We have Taco Tuesday," Lily announced. "And Movie Friday. And Pancake Saturday, but Mommy's pancakes don't look like animals. They look like blobs," Violet added helpfully. Sometimes the blobs look like clouds, Rose offered diplomatically. If you use your imagination. Nora laughed, flicking a bit of flour at her daughters. Thanks for the support, kiddo. I could show you sometime, Marcus offered, then immediately felt presumptuous. I mean, if you wanted. Sophie's gotten pretty good at making pancake lions. Instead of looking uncomfortable, Nora smiled. I'd like that. The girls would too. As the cookies baked, filling the house with a warm, sweet aroma, the triplets insisted on giving Marcus a tour, proudly showing off their room with the promised bunk beds and an impressive collection of stuffed animals. This is Commander Whiskers, Lily introduced a well-loved cat plushie with one eye missing and fur worn thin in places. He protects us from bad dreams. Very important job, Marcus nodded seriously. And this is Sparkles, and this is Fluffy, and this is Princess Buttercup, Rose continued, pointing to various stuffed creatures arranged on her bed. They're Commander Whiskers' army. Against the bad dreams? Marcus asked. And monsters, Violet clarified. But Daddy always said there's no such thing as monsters. So we pretend they're fighting bad dreams instead, Lily explained. Because those are real. Marcus knelt down to their level. You know, Sophie has bad dreams sometimes too. Does she have a Commander Whiskers? Rose asked, concerned. She has a bear named Mr. Buttons, Marcus said. But I think he could use some reinforcements. The girls exchanged meaningful glances before Violet solemnly handed him a small rabbit plushie. This is Lieutenant Hops. He can help Mr. Buttons. Marcus accepted the rabbit with appropriate gravity. Sophie will be honored. Thank you. By the time they returned to the kitchen, the cookies were ready. They gathered around the table, dunking warm cookies into cold milk and leaving crumbs everywhere. Marcus couldn't remember the last time he'd felt so comfortable in someone else's home. There was something about the organized chaos of Nora's house that felt right, the mismatched furniture that somehow worked together, the children's artwork framed with the same care as fine art, the well-worn cookbook on the counter with handwritten notes in the margins. When his phone buzzed with a text from Sophie's grandparents asking what time he'd pick her up tomorrow, Marcus realized with a start that hours had passed. I should probably get going, he said reluctantly. I've taken up your whole afternoon. We don't mind, Rose said, chocolate smeared across her cheek. Can you come back tomorrow? And bring Sophie? Marcus looked to Nora, not wanting to overstep. Actually, Nora said, wiping her hands on a dish towel, we're going to the Children's Museum tomorrow. Sophie might enjoy it, if you're free, that is. The invitation hung in the air between them, tentative, hopeful. She would love that, Marcus said. And so would I. The Children's Museum outing turned into dinner the following weekend. Dinner led to a trip to the zoo, then a Saturday morning hike. Before Marcus and Nora quite realized what was happening, their families were weaving together, creating new routines and traditions. Sophie and the triplets formed an immediate bond, with the younger girls looking up to Sophie with adoration while she embraced her role as the big sister they'd never had. Marcus found himself helping with math homework for 4 girls instead of 1, while Nora somehow always remembered to pack Sophie's favorite snacks whenever they went on outings.